Welcome through to today's video. Today we're going to talk through 7 signs you're not training hard enough. So the big driving force in terms of you getting results with burning body fat, building muscle, bulking up, whatever it is in terms of your fitness and physique goals, the key point that's really going to actually make you achieve results is training. And training intensity is one of the big driving factors that most people don't realise they aren't pushing themselves hard enough. For me, one of the big factors where I suddenly realised there's levels of the game of intensity. I think I remember the first time I trained with someone at a very high level. First person who comes to mind is when I trained, I think, with James Hollingshead. Maybe 4 years ago, I probably trained with him a couple of times, had a little bit of a period of training with him. And that was very eye-opening to see what someone at that level, in terms of intensity, how hard they push themselves. And that's when you realise suddenly you've got a whole nother gear. So today we're going to talk through 7 strategies in terms of signs that you aren't maybe going for your top gear. So we're going to go through those now. Point number 1, no focus. So you're in the gym, and I see people like this all the time. They're on their phone, they're sitting there, they're looking out the window, they're not in the zone of what they're doing. It's very apparent, these people who aren't focused inherently on what they're doing, and these are probably the same people who go to the gym probably on a daily basis and have done for years on end, yet they don't actually look like they're progressing, and they don't look any physically different than they are now. So the reality is, in terms of you getting the most bang from the buck in terms of your training, is being focused and being in the zone. Now there's a few things I'd recommend to do this, and that's one, I'm a big fan of using headphones, like noise cancelling headphones, just because I don't want to hear about Steve who went down the pub and he had an awesome night out whilst I'm in the middle of trying to get myself psyched up to train. I think there's something amazing about having the ability to switch off and the ability to switch on and then go beast mode and be focused. So headphones, I think, are a real big one for me. And 2 other things I like in terms of like social cues are cues in terms of before my workout, having a similar routine in terms of like the meal I'll eat, the pre-workout, the intra-workout drink, all those little tastes and signals almost signs to my body like this is go time, it's time to get revved up and get focused. So this is very, very important. Another ritual I have as well is actually writing out my workouts before training, because it helps me visualize what I'm actually going to be training in that session. So there's a couple of tips there to help you get focused and get in the zone. Again, anyone who knows me, I don't like to chit chat when training. I like to get in there, smash it, get it done, and then talk afterwards. And that's really the way to be focused, in the zone, be present, and make the most of your training session to get the best results. So that's point number 1 in 7 signs you're not training hard enough. Number 2, if you're training hard and you're pushing yourself, you should be at the point where you're like, holy shit, I feel nervous like about this training, this set. You look at your workout and you're like, you've got to do a bit of a gut check. Now, how do you do this, and how do you get to this situation? How do you get to this exciting opportunity to make more gains? The reality is, the key for this is using a logbook and actually writing out your workouts and tracking your sets and reps. Because if you track your sets and reps, what that's going to allow you to do is then use the progressive overload technique in terms of increasing your increasing your reps and your weight every week to make the most amount of progress possible. And this is when you get to the point where you're like, holy shit, I've got to do a lot of weight. So like, I'm at the point in a leg press, I'm doing 450, 460 kilos without including the sled, and I'm like, this is getting a little bit daunting. And it's the same thing when you're doing other things like big compound movements like stiff leg deadlifts, incline bench presses, stuff like that. You should be feeling nervous before your training session. If you're not feeling any sense of nerves or any sense of apprehension about before training, you know reality is you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough. And I question you today to think about that for your training session today, tomorrow, whenever the next is. If you're not feeling nervous, then I'd question why. Because you're probably just going in there pissing around doing some like lateral raises and doing a few bicep curls, and you wonder why you're not seeing progress. Because the reality is you're not pushing yourself hard enough, otherwise you'd actually be nervous about the training session you're about to put yourself through. This leads very nicely on to point number 3, which is the mental battle. And we all know what I'm talking about in terms of mental battle. You're in the mid-set, you're deep in there, you're in the pain zone. And this is one of my favourite things, because you can see what someone's made of when they're going through a training session. In particular, if you're doing something like legs, when someone's balls deep in a hack squat and they're in the hurt locker, you know whether that's someone you'd want to go into battle with or not. You'd be like, you'd be cannon fodder and you die pretty quickly. I wouldn't want to be in the trenches with you. Whereas other people, you know, like, this guy's legit, he's got fucking backbone of steel, he'd be stand strong with us. So there's a big mental battle when it comes in terms of training, and you'll know what I'm talking about in terms of that little bitch voice that's in your head. It's like, oh, this is getting a bit heavy, I'm getting a bit tired, my knee feels a little bit sore, maybe we should stop this. And that's like the bitch voice you need to like just tell to shut up and just keep pushing yourself. So if you're not having this internal conversation in your mind in terms of a mental battle with yourself, then I would seriously question the intensity at which you're actually training at. Because even when it comes to HIIT cardio, I have the same thing myself. I'm like, here we go again, like this is going to be fun. And that's something we're going to come on to later on in this conversation, is about like the reality in terms of the mental battle with everything in life is what sets you apart from being average to being exceptional. And if you're not seeing progress and you're not actually having a mental battle with yourself on a daily basis, then this is probably one of the key things which is holding you back in terms of you're not training hard enough and you're not training intensely. So that's the point number 3. Number 4 we're going to go on to is a bit of a taboo subject, and that's not making noise whilst training. Training is like a ghost. Now, the reality is when it comes to training, if you're not like, it is a bit corny. And Americans who go to Planet Fitness, you know what I'm talking about in terms of that. I think it's like a junk alarm where if you drop a weight or you make too much noise, an alarm goes off, which is pretty retarded. But if you're not making a bit of noise, chance like it's some sort of animal noise, like grunting a bit, and you're balls deep on a leg press, chances are you're probably not pushing yourself as hard as you should be. Because the reality is, if you're grunting and you're gunning it, you can't control the noises you're almost making. Then what I would suggest is you probably need to reevaluate the situation in terms of the amount of graft you're actually putting into your training session. So that's something you really want to be thinking about. And talking about how hard you're training is coming on to the next point in terms of point number 5, which is that saying the best plan is the one you enjoy the most. Is it really? In terms of the best plan for you getting results is often not going to be the one you enjoy the most. Particular guys out there, and most guys will probably want to train chest and arms 3 times a week. Not many guys want to be training legs like 2-3 times a week. So realistically, what's probably the best thing for you to do is probably the training you least want to do. And it's one of those sayings that I love, is like, if you can't do something in life, that means you must do something. So the reality is, in terms of you pushing yourself to get the best results possible, if you're doing a workout you enjoy doing, that almost alludes to what we were talking about earlier in terms of having a mental battle with yourself. If you're not having a mental battle, then you're probably enjoying the workout because you're probably cruising through it. You're probably doing a few bicep supersets, a few shoulder supersets, getting a bit of a pump. The reality is that's probably going to do sweet F all for you. And what you really need to do is actually have a progressive training plan, which is going to push you to your absolute limits. And it's that saying that pressure makes diamonds. And if you're not willing to step it up in terms of that and have a difficult plan like the ones we create for clients at CJ Coaching and the ones I put myself through, as you guys on YouTube will know, then the reality is you're not going to be maximizing the progress you could be making, and you're not training hard enough or as intensely as you possibly could be. So yes, you want to have a plan you could adhere to, but let's be honest, you got to embrace the suck. Like, shit sucks sometimes and you just got to do it. But what is the best thing about it, and everyone drop a comment below below this if you agree, is that once you've pushed yourself through something, that sense of achievement is awesome. So that's something I truly would recommend you think about. Next up, point number 6 in 7 signs you're not training hard enough would be that you never get muscle soreness and you don't feel like you need a day off. Now, my current training program, I do 2 days on of training, 1 day's rest. Most I can train in a row without breaking myself and feeling like I hit my bus is 3 days. Now, I would never suggest really anyone does more than 3 days in a row. And if you're someone who's training 6 days a week on the bounce, I would suggest you're training like an absolute pansy and you're not training hard enough. And you're probably not doing all of these things we talked about. So you're not training with any focus, you never feel nervous before training, you've never got the mental battle, you make net zero noise whilst training, and your plan is thoroughly enjoyable because it's very easy and you can coast through the motions. Now, the reality is muscle soreness isn't a sign of progress or an effective training session. However, if you're training like a beast and you're going beast mode and you're pushing yourself to your absolute limit, there will be some training soreness, regardless of how good your programming is and your recovery outside of the gym. So this is something you just need to be very aware of, that you should have some amount of muscle soreness, to a degree. And when you first start a new training program, or if you're new to training, the amount of muscle soreness you will have will be much higher because your body won't have built up the capability to recover as well from the training as it probably has done previously. So if you're not feeling any muscle soreness and you never feel, you wake up the next day from training legs and you feel fresh as daisy, like you could run a marathon, I can guarantee you're probably training like a pussy and training like a pansy. So that was something I would highly recommend you think about. And we'll finish up with point number 7, which sort of coincides with this, which is how do you actually feel? So there is a huge sense of belief and accomplishment after training. When you've had a really good training session, you feel like, holy shit, I proved something to myself then. I feel awesome. And you'll also probably feel, hungry, you probably feel your body's craving carbohydrates and sugars, and you probably will do the rest of the day. And that is a really, and you probably feel a bit drained maybe if you've done something big like legs. And that's a very important sign in terms of you pushing yourself to your maximum capabilities to maximize your progress. And if you don't feel that sense of achievement, you don't feel like your body's craving nutrients after training, you don't feel anything, then you've probably not done anything. And that would be my final point to wrap up this video is, how do you feel after training? If you're not feeling like you've accomplished anything, you don't feel like your body's craving food and nutrients, and you're not feeling fatigued, then you've definitely not trained hard enough. So these are the 7 points to make sure that you're training hard enough and to be aware of. So point number 1 is you've got no focus. Point number 2 is you never feel nervous before sets. Number 3 is the mental battle. You should always have a mental battle within your head of not pushing out when you're training. Number 4 is you make 0 noise whilst training. Number 5 is the best plan is the most enjoyable. Often not true. Number 6 is you never get sore or muscle DOMs. And number 7 is how do you actually feel after training. Hope this video was helpful and insightful. If you want help mapping out your own journey and your own progress to maximize your own muscle building and fat loss physique, then drop me a message or drop a comment below. There's also a link below this video where you can book in your free 6-pack strategy call with myself and the CJ coaching team, where you get world-class results faster than anyone else. And we'll see you in the next video. Make sure you smash the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode.